everyone. Welcome. How are you? Look who I have. I pointed in the right way this time. How are you, Justin?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it, and I'm so glad you agreed to it. Um,
My pleasure.
Everyone, just if you don't know who this is Justin Gagliani. They are a streamer on TikTok as well as a person who does some awesome podcasts about D&D, and they also do are a published author. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So we're going to talk about all sorts of things today. So just to start off, where did the name "So You Want to Be a DM" come from? Like, what was the inspiration? What was that whole thing?
Yeah. So, I guess we ran through all of the Taylor and myself are co-hosts of the So You Want to Be a Dungeon Master podcast and everything. And we talked about it. It was like, all right, what are we going to name the whole thing, And any DM can tell you the time we spend naming things is huge.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
putting a lot of effort into that. It has to be something catchy and memorable. And there's no offense to anybody who's done this. There's already so many other TTRPG things that are like some form of D&D. It's dice and daydream. It's some form of it. So we were like, okay, maybe not that. And I think Taylor just came up with it. So You Want to Be a DM.
Oh, cool.
Playing off that typical phrasing.
Right.
So you want to something.
Right.
And just ran with it. It comes out of, it's very natural to say. It sounds good. And
it works.
It surprisingly wasn't taken anywhere.
Really? Which is kind of weird.
I haven't had a single issue with every. Now that I say that, people are going to try and get like obscure social media accounts. But yeah, I haven't had any issues. Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, podcasts. It hasn't been taken. So that was another thing of being like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Exactly.
Let's run with it.
So you just mentioned Taylor. So I see on your logo, it says your name and Taylor's name. So you guys actually started as a duo. Tell us a little bit about your partner. Not, don't go too deep into his story. I don't want you to tell his story, but how did you guys meet? Like, how did that partnership happen?
Yeah. So Taylor and I met via playing D&D.
Oh.
Frankly, yeah. So it was just, he was a player in one of my games. Or actually, no, we started both as players in one campaign.
Okay.
And then when that one sort of fizzled out, the DM couldn't do it anymore or whatever. Typical woes.
Yeah.
We transitioned over to myself running a campaign as the DM. He was a player in it. That game's still going on.
Oh, wow.
Almost 4 years later. And we've played a bunch of other games and other things since. And it blossomed into, hey, neither of us like our 9-to-5s. We don't like working for other people or like capitalism. Let's do our own thing. And what if we can make this hobby of Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop games?
Right.
What if we can make it into a thing?
Yeah. That works. So you said, I kind of want to touch on it a little bit. I know it's not something that we're talking about, but you said that you get met in a game as players together, and then the game fizzled out. I'm always curious as to why games fizzle out. Whether it's the DM, whether it's the players and scheduling, whether it's something that significantly happened that was like, oh my god, that's awful and we hate it here. Like, what was the context behind that first game?
That first game, oh boy, I think it was just been so long now, but I think it was just a scheduling thing. It was just choosing to run a campaign that is meant for X amount of sessions. So it was Curse of Strahd.
Okay.
A lot of people have either played that or at the very least familiar with it and stuff. It's like, it's a pre-written module. There's so many amazing creators who twist and change things because Strahd has so many problematic vibes. But that it can be a pretty long campaign.
Right.
in its own right. And this DM, I think, just got bored of it or just wasn't interested in it anymore or something. It was just like the scheduling fell through.
Okay.
And it was just, okay, like we're not playing. When's the next time we're playing? And it was like a month away. And
oh gosh, I hate that.
Slowly, slowly like triculated down to just being like, all right, well, we want to play consistently.
Well,
so we're gonna do this other thing.
And thank you for your time, and bye now.
Yeah, Godspeed with everything.
I go totally get it.
We're gonna do
it's gonna exactly. Usually, it's like if it's a scheduling thing, it's like, okay, we'll meet in a week, and then we'll meet in 2 weeks, and then we'll meet next month, and then 4 months from now, and then suddenly it's like a year. You know, I get it. You and Taylor run a D&D podcast on Apple and Spotify. When did the podcast start?
Great question. So it's actually available everywhere you find podcasts, but Apple and Spotify are like numero uno, numero dos when it comes to like the amount of downloads we get percentage wise. So those are the two that you'll always find on the link tree and stuff like that. But technically we're on some random apps I've never even heard of. but we started recording episodes back in late October of 2023. But we didn't post anything until I want to say end of December or January 2024.
Okay.
So we already had built up like 15 episodes.
Oh, wow.
And they're like mostly edited, ready to go. We have an entire outline of things. That way we knew that we wanted to post consistently.
Okay.
New episodes every Wednesday, and that should remain the same so that people can come to expect that. And what if we get lazy one week?
Like, don't feel like it today.
Yeah, what if it's just like, hey, I'm not in it today. Like I don't want to record an episode today and read a script or do an outline or whatever it may be.
Right.
Thank goodness we have a bank of episodes.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
So that's like when we started. And then it's slowly been like, okay, we have the Instagram, we have the TikTok, because we started building those before we ever posted an episode.
Oh, nice. Okay.
To sort of get a following already, get things in the works, so that when we come out with a podcast, hopefully we already have at least a little bit of a following.
Right.
And then we published the podcast, and we've been posting that ever since.
That's awesome. Slowly
added on a Patreon, and in June we're starting our Twitch.
Oh, nice. Awesome. That's amazing. So
yeah, we're very excited.
Your podcast has this like, because I listened to a bunch of them. It has this like comedic lean to it. Was this on purpose, or was it just an accidental of like you guys just vibe that way?
Oh, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think it's our natural proclivity to inject humor and have a good time and be silly and funny about how we view this stuff. And that's Taylor and I, that's our relationship, is just us joking around and kind of giving each other a hard time and recognizing that, like, even though we're good friends and we both love the game, there are different aspects of the game that we love, and we DM totally differently, and we prepare for games differently. And then just thinking from like it might take some of the magic out of it, but thinking from like a marketing business standpoint of being like, funny works.
Yes,
funny
it
sells.
does.
So it's, why not?
Yeah, two things sell: funny and like really, really serious, like in your face stuff. Other than that, everything else is kind of like maybe, you know.
Yeah.
So is the ultimate goal of this podcast to give people just the basics of D&D and make it more approachable, or is it purely for your own entertainment?
Great questions. I believe that the purpose of the podcast for us is to create an open space that is like safe and comfortable to invite more people to try being a dungeon master.
I like that.
And doing it in a way that also entertains us. Because like, if we're not having fun doing it, then like maybe we should do something else. Maybe we should have done a podcast that was all actual plays from the get-go. But we knew that was really saturated. There's a ton out there.
Yes.
So many good ones.
Yes.
So it was like, let's do something slightly different. And we'll talk about this. But yeah, it's really just like, we want people to try being a DM and like feel more comfortable with it, and like to get rid of some of the myths and fears and stresses that are out there, and many of which are like validly there. Like, I understand why somebody would feel like this is a very daunting hurdle to overcome.
Right.
But at the same token, like, hopefully listening to a couple of our silly episodes where we call ourselves experienced DMs, I'm supposed to cast myself as an authority figure or something. I'm still learning things. I'm still like, you can hear it in episodes where it's like, wait a minute, that's how that works? Dang, I didn't know.
I get it. Sometimes, yesterday I did a one shot for We Geek Together. They do. I think this is their second year. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but last year they broke Guinness World Record for the biggest D&D game, over 1,000 players. Wow. They did it again last night, and they had people who wanted to participate do a one shot to get the player on the ground supplies. So it was pretty fun. But
that's really cool.
It was one of those moments as a DM, you're like, I don't know this is. It happens all the time. Like, I'm supposed to know this stuff. It happens, you know. You specifically are just growing like steadily on TikTok. I've seen you on TikTok. I found you through TikTok. This Instagram's a little different. You have higher numbers there, or even the podcast.
Yeah.
So was the transition from Instagram to podcast to TikTok what you wanted to do, or was it just a thing that just happened that way?
Great question. Some behind the scenes logistical stuff. So I started the Instagram way before So You Want to Be a DM was even a twinkle in anybody's eye.
Awesome.
That was myself. I started that solo when I was trying to build a following, just talking about like the most generic, what's your favorite type of bard? Like just the most generic stuff. And I was just sharing like memes and artwork, like nothing special. What I found was I could reach 28,000 followers.
Yes.
Could I get those people to care when I started showing my face out of nowhere and being like, we have a podcast? No, I could not. So I'll let you in on a secret. We've been losing followers on Instagram every month over month for the past 6 months, because a lot of those followers came here for memes, for quick 7-second content. And now they're getting 2-minute content of me sharing tips and talking about this and all kinds of stuff. And they're like, oh, I just want the silly memes. I just want the laughs, the lulls. So like the people who are staying and who are continuing to, because we're still getting followers, so we're just not as many as we're losing, but it's a natural progression. It's like, hey, this is the content that we're trying to put out now. I recognize that TikTok and Instagram are a means to an end in terms of like converting. This is going to sound really like social media marketing kind of vibes.
That's okay.
But, like, but it's like trying to convert followers into listeners of the podcast or members on the Patreon or subscribers on Twitch. Right? Like that's kind of the vibe. So if you get a good feeling of who I am and who we are as a group on TikTok and on Instagram, you're more likely, when I say like, hey, we're doing an actual play now on Twitch in June, hopefully you'll tune in. Right. Because if it's just memes, then it's like, you don't even know me. It's just memes. My face doesn't even show up. Yeah, and then when you do actual play, people are gonna be like, what is this? You know? Yeah, it's just like people get used to a certain type of content. And so just trying to like think about that a little bit. So the Instagram started forever ago. It was a way to try, I didn't do it super hot at it at the time, but it was a way to try and get people onto like DM's Guild and stuff. You mentioned being a published author. I really, really appreciate that. 'Cause I've written some stuff for DM's Guild and like
Mm-hmm.
some third-party stuff, which I'm really proud of. But just getting people over to that site to be like,
Yes.
hey, I wrote stuff. But again, it was like at the time I'm just sharing memes, so it's like,
Right.
I have no legitimacy,
Right.
like for people. So then just straight up changing that. It used to be called Dungeons and Daydreams.
Really?
I did the D&D thing. Yep. Changed the name to So You Want to Be a DM when we figured that whole thing out. Started a TikTok. Did memes for like a week and immediately was like, oh, this is gonna do the same thing that the Instagram did.
Yep.
Stop doing memes altogether. We'll never do a meme ever again. No offense to anyone who does it. I love them. I think they're fun and amazing.
Right.
I don't think that it's great for your follower base that you already have.
Yeah.
But for new followers, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I wasn't doing anything on my TikTok channel that was D&D related. It was just kind of a post here and a post there, and then all of a sudden, like, I started doing clips of my interviews, and all people were like, "The hell is this?" Bye. It's really weird. So it's fine now, but
it's hard. Sometimes you have to go through like some hardcore like growing pains, like transitionary period of like, I recognize that for the next 2 months the numbers ain't great. But it'll have the longevity
right,
and that's even more important than like seeing some red dipping numbers and stuff.
I know. I mean, it can be depressing, but it's fine. Dungeons and Dragons, like you touched on it a little bit. It's very, very niche. Like, it is a very niche thing. I know that the live play is a little bit oversaturated, but everything else about Dungeons and Dragons is still very niche. Why did you choose that specifically for your social media outlet, as opposed to like how to become a content creator or any other thing, or even like some type of political thing?
True. Yeah, definitely. Interesting. So in terms of why we chose Dungeons and Dragons, I think it just came down to we're passionate about it.
Okay.
I think Taylor and I are both passionate about it. We feel like we have enough to say and bring into the conversation that doesn't feel like we're just like another voice in the cacophony of voices. And also, I think having a niche is actually like, talk about content creation.
Yeah.
That's going to be your best friend.
Yes.
I before we did this podcast, I had been in and run a podcast for over a year with my sister.
Aww.
And it was so much fun. My sister's like my best friend. We're bouncing off of each other. It was an incredible energy and so fun. However, so that's an entire year of posting once a week podcasts, and we got nowhere. And it's because we never had a niche.
Right.
It was, hey, we're just a sibling combo and our zany energy, that's going to be enough. And it's not enough. No. It's like, I mean, on podcasts, you're competing with like C-list celebrities who aren't on TV anymore, who are like, hey, remember that 90s show? I have a podcast now. Let's talk about it. And it's like, I got to compete with that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a chance. So that's a large reason of the niche thing. We are planning on like opening up eventually to other TTRPGs, because I think, especially myself, like, we recognize that D&D 5th edition is not perfect.
No, not by any means.
We have never made the claim that it is perfect.
Exactly.
And as a system, as like a tabletop game system, we like it a lot.
Right.
Neither of us like Wizards of the Coast a ton. The things that they're doing, not big fans of.
Yeah.
But we also, like, there are other systems that are out there, and even if you're really gung-ho on being a dungeon master for D&D, other systems can teach you a ton.
Yes.
I've learned so much just this year alone from other games like Call of Cthulhu or Kids on Bikes or Monster of the Week or whatever else is out there. So I think, yeah, it really just comes down to, like, this is what we're passionate about. It's making what feels like a side hustle kind of thing, like just this thing that you're really, really into, and trying to make that into your main hustle, and doing it in a way where, like, it doesn't feel like work.
Yes,
like
exactly.
That old expression.
Yeah.
So,
which answers the question: is the long-term goal to make this your full-time job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
There's no question. So with the crossover, you talked about Taylor is going to eventually be joining you on camera. Will it always be solely you and him on the podcast, or do you plan on bringing anyone else in?
Amazing. Yeah. So people will notice that like it's mainly me who are like visually facing,
right.
Camera facing. It's like majority me. Part of that is because I had a lot of social media management experience. So like coming in and being like, I know how to do the TikToks, I know how to do the Instas, I'll figure it out.
Right.
And I also, comparatively to Taylor, I'm also much more comfortable on camera and like not taking myself too seriously and having a fun time. And like he and I both have like self-esteem issues when it comes to like body dysmorphia and stuff like that. So like the amount of time I spend before the camera clicks go, right, like making sure everything, the angles are set, the lighting is good, I'm wearing like very specific outfits that are flattering, like it may not show in some of the videos, but like there's a ton of attention to detail when it comes to stuff like that to make myself feel more comfortable when I have to see clips of myself or something, or like hear my own voice when we're recording podcasts and stuff like that. It all takes a lot of getting used to. But I'll give Taylor a ton of credit. When we first started, he was like, I don't really want to be on camera that much. And since then he is really like, and this is not like advice to anybody or like what you should do. I'm just kind of giving Taylor some flowers for his journey. But he's like pushed himself a lot to like get outside of his own comfort zone. And that might not be right for everybody. By no means do you have to be on camera to be successful. I mean, there's all different kinds of like e-streamers and different categories of stuff. There's podcasts that you'll never really see their face. And
VTubers.
They're just as good.
That's
totally fine. But for Taylor, it is a huge step for him, and I'm very proud of him.
That's awesome.
So eventually, when the Twitch comes out in June, it will be a lot more of on-camera stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
With not just myself, but with Taylor.
Oh, that's awesome.
And some other players and stuff like that. And then to answer the other question you had, which was, I remember. It was, hold on. Refresh my memory. Part of your question.
I'm trying to remember myself because it was a long question. If anybody else remembers, can it help us? But it's okay. It'll pop up again probably. But
okay.
So we could go ahead. But so, how did you discover D&D when you first started? Like before the podcast, before you started DMing, as someone who goes, "Ooh, that's D&D." How did you discover it?
Okay. So. For me personally, I had heard about D&D through like the zeitgeist. Like I've always considered myself a nerd, but when I was in like high school, college, I was kind of like, okay, I like video games, I like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, whatever. That is a little much. I don't know. Especially because like, you know, when you see it like in media, like if you watch like the old TV show Freaks and Geeks or something, like they're getting dressed up, they're wearing outfits, they're LARPing.
Yeah, they're LARPing. It's not really,
and it's like
what it
just there's a very big like stereotype. There's a lot of misconceptions about what it is and how it's done and all this different stuff. And so I straight up just ignorance and just whatever, didn't think that was for me. And then I've read, or rather listened to the audiobook of Ready Player One by Ernest Cline.
That's such a good book.
So I love the book so much.
The book is way better than the movie. The movie's good, but the book is better.
I'm of the belief that they're so different.
Yes.
That like I can watch the movie and have a great time.
Right.
I can also re-listen to the audiobook and have a great time,
Right.
because none of the challenges are. We don't need to get into like spoilers.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
They're two different things.
They're different. They're very different.
So like, if you know the book, then you know that in the beginning there's some Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
Yes.
And it mentions some modules and some actual people that, or like characters rather, that like exist in the D&D world. And I just remember like listening to that and being like, oh, D&D is like the original video game.
Yeah.
Like you have your stats, you level up, you get new powers and magic items and all this stuff, except you can't save the game.
Right.
Like, this isn't like Pokemon where you're trying to catch a legendary Pokemon and you can just click save before you go do it in case you fail.
Right. Or
turn the game off, turn it back on.
And you can click save right before you do the heavy thing, die and go back. Can't do that.
Exactly. You can't do that. And not only that, but it's also, as I started to explore it more and more, I found out that it's not even just this idea of the video game, because you're not playing by yourself. You're playing with the table of people, and you're collectively coming up with decisions that are going to change how the story works. Like you could have this outline and different people are going to run it differently and change the story, and no two games will be the same, and all this interesting stuff. And so that led me to find a lot of like the kind of like traditionally popular actual plays like Critical Role, Dimension 20, all that kind of stuff. And then it was over. It was a wrap. It was a wrap.
Hooked for life.
Hooked.
It's hooked for life.
Over. Yeah.
I've never met anyone, with the exception of maybe my sister, who like watched or played D&D and was like, they didn't want to play it again. They were like, they played it forever and ever again. You know, it never stopped. Like I said, with the exception of my sister, that was the only thing. So what was that first gameplay like for you?
The first time I played D&D?
Yes.
Oof. Okay.
Oh boy.
I didn't have the greatest experience, actually.
Oh no.
Yeah, so none of my in-person friends, none of my little clique wanted to play. They just like weren't as into it, or like it was hard communicating it to them because I hadn't played yet. So it was just like this whole thing. So I go online, I find one of those virtual tabletops. I look for the looking for game thing, and I find a group that wants to play, and it says welcoming new players. So I'm like, sick, I'm in. I come up with a cool character idea of a Furbolg barbarian. So for people who don't know, barbarians are usually pretty mad. Yeah. Rage is a big thing. And Furbolgs are like gentle giants.
They're not.
Yeah, so that was why I picked it, because some people like to break the game with like numbers, and I like doing it with lore. So I like the idea of being like, okay, this like ancestry of people aren't normally mad. They're known for being kind and nice and sweet.
Yes.
Why would they be mad? And let's find the reason. Let's fill in the gap of how do we get from A to B. And I brought that up to the DM, and he immediately shut it down. Immediately was like, Furbolgs can't be mad. They're sweet and gentle. Like, that doesn't make sense. So no, you can't do it. So I had to play. And, you know, when you're a baby D&D player and you don't know any better, you don't see that as a red flag. You think that's like well, they're the DM. They're allowed to say those things, and I don't know any better. As opposed to just like talking to me about it. Maybe we find a compromise for the type of character I'm trying to play. Like, there could have been a million ways that went better. Anyway, I played, what was it? A halfling rogue named Jethro Tull.
Nice.
Who had a southern accent. He was a blast. But then once we get into the part of the campaign where we're allowed to pick subclasses, like we're level 3, I go for Arcane Trickster because I'm like a thief who can do magic. Like, that sounds so cool. And once again, the DM gave me so much crap for it.
But it's a thing.
Yeah, it was like, his argument was like, what? So you're in the middle of adventuring and now you just know magic? And I'm like, no, we can come up with, let's work together.
Make the story work,
We can come up with reasons I know magic.
Yeah.
Don't just shut me down. Like, it's in the freaking player's handbook.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't find this on some subreddit.
Oh my. Like, okay, that's making me piss. That's pissing me off a little bit. Like, oh my god.
It was crazy. So eventually he gave in and let me have magic and stuff, but that was bad taste in my mouth. And then another litany of like that DM. I mean, it was like red flag after red flag after red flag
Oh,
with newish players who didn't know any better.
Oh, okay.
So one of the players is playing as a femme presenting character, goes into a tavern, creeps. All the freaking NPCs are creeps. Disgusting. Hated it. Made me feel slimy. I was like, get me the hell out of this game. What is going on? And then he ended up power word killing one of our players at a level where none of us had resurrection magic. None of us had counterspell.
Why?
So it was just like,
because he could. Yeah, probably because he could.
Couldn't tell you. It definitely, I'm not a psychologist, but it definitely seemed like narcissism if I've ever seen it.
Like, I could do it, so I'm going to do it.
It seemed like a little bit of a control problem, but we all ended up leaving. We wrote a strongly worded letter that said, hey, unless you fully pull 180-degree turns in all of these fields, we're out. And he wasn't willing to meet us halfway, and it was like, all right, I think we're being more than generous by giving you another chance, but okay.
Wow. So, and
luckily it's been pretty good since then. Well, like one or two little hiccups here and there, but in terms of
like that.
In terms of like glaring red flags, pretty good.
Okay, that's good. Okay, because I was gonna ask then what. It's like a lot of people would have taken that experience and go, screw D&D. But you ended up staying. So how did you not only end up staying after that experience, but transition from player to DM?
Yeah. So part of it was after that game ended, when all of us players rose up and revolted against this tyrannical freaking dungeon master, we formed our own group.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So then it was just 4 players who now, because we don't have anything planned, it was just all of us running a one-shot.
Okay.
So I DM and we do a one-shot. This person DMs and does a one-shot, so on and so forth, a little round robin. And that kind of like lifted my spirits, showed me that DM, for all intents and purposes, the bad one, I mean, that DM should be the exception, or excuse me, yes, the exception and not the rule. That should not be how it is done. And let's do all we can as fellow players and people who share the space to make sure that that is the exception, and call that person out when it comes to light and make them feel uncomfortable for being mean and gross, gatekeepy and gross. And so gross. So that kind of showed like, okay, I'm not alone. It wasn't just, you know what I mean? That would have been even worse experience if only I was the one who was feeling gross at the table and everybody else was like, no, this is normal.
Like,
that
this is fine.
That would have sucked. But the fact that all of the other players also were like, what do you mean? Like, this is disgusting. Stop doing it like this. So that immediately gave me hope. And then from there, I've just been really fortunate to meet a bunch of like-minded individuals, whether it's in my own personal games and stuff, or like on TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that, being fortunate enough to like make our opinions just loud enough to be like, if you're not into this, probably don't follow us.
Yeah, well, this is why it's a niche. So after you transitioned to DM, how did you? A lot of DMs, once they start DMing, don't play as much. How often do you get to play, if at all, now that you DM?
Yeah, I get to be a player in a lot of games because of the connections that I've made in space. So like, I frequently am honored to be able to guest spot on like different streams, whether it's like Hammer of the Gods or Even Footing Games and stuff like that. Or I have like a little project coming up with it when I'm working with a really fun podcast and YouTube. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about that one yet, though, so I won't say too much. But like
Okay.
that's another example where I'll be a player
Okay.
as a guest spot for a couple episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and like, but other than that, other than like guest spots and other one shots and stuff, I haven't been able to be a player in like a long-term thing in forever, excluding there's a Pathfinder game, like a home game,
Okay.
where I'm a player in a Pathfinder game, and that's been really fun.
So
But
that's the
other
only
than
one.
that's the only one where I'm like playing a campaign where I get to
Right.
like have a character and see that character develop and change and mature, and like I figure out aspects of their personality as we play. Because
Right.
most of the time it's like a one shot, so it's
Yeah.
like
There's
I'm
no
coming up with like
development,
a silly funny name that's a pun. Their entire life is like 3 bullet points, and I'm like, all right, here we go. What silly voice do I want to do? And that's the character.
So TTRPG, we had said before, is slowly becoming, specific D&D, growing a following, especially here on Twitch, and kind of on YouTube too, as we come to see, with channels like Dimension 20 and Critical Role. For your Twitch channel, other than what you do for the podcast, do you plan on doing something similar to those channels, or just purely just lending your expertise and knowledge?
Great question. Yeah, as of right now, and all of this is subject to change, we may find that after a month or two we want to switch things up or whatever.
Right.
However, our intention going into it, our hope for the Twitch of So You Want to Be a DM, is to, I guess, if you're using like very popular actual plays as sort of your North Star,
Right.
I suppose it would be closer to Dimension 20.
Okay.
It's going to be closer to that in the realm of like leaning a little bit more heavily on humor and fun and having a good time.
Yeah.
And also just the concept of shorter campaigns.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like at this very moment, we're planning our first campaign for that actual play. It's probably going to be like 8 episodes.
Oh, okay.
So we want to explore a bunch of different worlds. We want to give we want to share the space with a bunch of different creators and people in this space as players and as like cast members, if you will, and stuff like that. And so we don't want to do what Critical Role does, where we, no offense to them, I guess, yeah, a little offense to them. We don't want to like have one set cast and then be like, this is kind of all we're gonna do is this one cast forever. And it's going to be in the same world and the same vibes and tones, and they're going to be like, hey, this week, episode 95 of the same campaign, and it's also 4 hours long, and that's just like, it works for a lot of people. I like Critical Role as an audience member and stuff, like it, I'm into it most of the time, but like, it can be chunky and like, it's not what we want to do.
Right.
We don't want to do the same setting for 3 years. We want to explore a million different settings. Like we have so many ideas.
So do you think that a premise like Critical Role can be not only daunting to try and copy, but maybe detrimental for new people coming into TTRPG and streaming?
Interesting. I do think that it's very daunting. I think it's daunting by the very fact of they all, prior to ever playing a Critical Role game on camera, were professional voice actors.
Right.
That's an incredible skill that they've crafted through their careers. That inherently sets the bar pretty high for what they're able to do, the emotions that they're able to evoke, the storytelling aspect of it, and it's why they do so well. It's like one of the reasons Critical Role is successful by numbers alone is just the very fact that like they're good at what they do. Dimension 20, similar light though, they have a lot of improv sketch comedians and stuff like that. They're also good at what they do. They just decided to go about it in a different way. And I think that's why we were thinking more that way, is just the very basis of like, we want to tell a bunch of stories, not just one story. And So then when it comes to like people coming into this space and Critical Role potentially being a detriment or anything, I think the biggest way is just like, I suppose it's really like they are often seen as a pedestal or like a pinnacle of actual play and the TTRPG space and D&D and all these different things. And when I don't know, I think some of it has to just do with like the fandom of any nerd culture thing has like some of the grossest and like most gatekeepy, misogynistic, homophobic, you name it, different pieces of that crew, and that always sucks because you're like, I just hate that in general.
Agreed.
But you know, whether it's Star Wars or anime or whatever it is,
it's always something.
I can't stand that. It makes me so sad because you're like, you almost, at least this is how I feel sometimes. I feel icky because I'm like, oh, but I like Critical Role. So if a chunk of the fan base is being weird,
it's like
I don't like
association, like that's a weird association. You're like, I don't like it. Please stop.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. So I think like also they have to recognize that like, hey, listen, when you get this big and you are fully like millionaires and like running your own business and this big of a platform, it is just that, it's a platform. Like you have to recognize that it adds on another layer of responsibility as a creator in the space and stuff like that, where you should be lending your voice to different things. It shouldn't take 1,000 TikToks to beg you to call for a ceasefire or something like that. Like that's a shame that it took that long and stuff like that. So yeah, I know people are, and then also like if somebody calls out Critical Role for doing X, Y, and Z, for example, like the lack of representation on their main stage, I don't love the idea that some of their fan base feels so comfortable immediately getting like borderline violent about it.
Yeah, and like to the point of like stalky, toxic, weird.
It gets really crazy, and then you're like mass reporting people who are going live. I saw that with like Noir Enigma and stuff, and like just all different kinds of stuff like that. I don't like that kind of behavior. So I think it just, I don't know. I think that's the detriment of it, is this idea of like not taking the responsibility of the success that you've made. Like they deserve the success that they've had. They've done amazing things. They do speak out for some things, mainly on their personal socials and stuff, which great, better than nothing, I suppose. But at the same token, it's like, I don't know. I guess it depends on where you stand when it comes to like celebrities speaking out. I'm of the belief of like, it's the least you can do to be like, God dang it. If certain country now pop star singers would just make a single post saying, hey gang, go call for a ceasefire, it would like millions call to action. So that's how I feel about it.
So I just want to touch on this a little bit because it is something I discovered by looking through your link tree. You publish a Modern 5e module on DriveThruRPG.
Yes.
Where did the idea come from, and why did you publish that module?
Incredible. So, yeah, I have been writing and working on and playing in a modern 5th edition setting that I refer to as Sphinx City. And it's very loosely based off of Manhattan. And then just like with adding magic into it. So I'm sure plenty of people, you see the stuff, you see the writing on the wall. I'm a big Dimension 20 and Brendan Lee Mulligan fan. It has undeniable connections to Unsleeping City. Like that's just a fact. But in Unsleeping City, Brennan did this really interesting thing where there was like 2 layers. There was like the normal people who lived in New York City who weren't aware of magic. And then there's like beneath that, the Unsleeping City, there's all these people who are aware of magic. And I just decided to merge the two and just be like, no, these are just normal Sphinx City citizens who are just walking down the street, but the hot dog salesman is a bugbear, and the hot dogs are being cooked by a small fire elemental.
Right.
And that's just, so it's all just connected. There is no delineation between the two worlds. And I've had it so much fun for it. I have a certain like romanticized idea of New York City in my head, being from New Jersey, and just like, I mean, I get y'all guys got as tourists. I live at the Jersey Shore.
Okay.
I get you guys as tourists all the time during the summer. So it's nice to be able to go into your guys' neck of the woods and hang out for a little bit. Amazing.
Do you plan on publishing any more modules in this setting, or do you have more traditional settings you plan on publishing as well? What's the deal with your publishing and your writing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right now, a lot of from a publishing standpoint, a lot of that stuff has been put on hold as I'm trying to like get all of the moving parts of TikTok, Instagram, podcast, Patreon, which is like our bonus action. We called it bonus actions, the most clever name ever. For our bonus material on Patreon, that's like another podcast. It comes out weekly.
Oh wow!
It's another podcast that's only Patreon people get. So that's like another thing to edit. And then now Twitch coming up. So for all of these reasons, trying to keep all these plates spinning, I've been working on a ton of things behind the scenes, but like not necessarily in a way that I would feel comfortable publishing it. Like, you know, like the little things of being like, the box text is the part that you read out loud to the party, or here's the like see appendix A for information on this NPC. Like I'm not writing it in a way that I would publish, but I do have like a huge document for every single location in all the neighborhoods of Sphinx City. And a lot of them are like, honestly, they're the dumbest names. Like, so in Manhattan, you have like Midtown West.
Okay.
Minotaur West. Done. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dumb. Greenwich Village, Gnomewich Village.
Oh, that's
Broadway, Ardsway. So dumb.
It's like just the tongue in cheek. Like, I want to buy it and read it. The problem is, I don't want it to influence my work. So it's one of those things, that. Yeah. You know,
I feel the same way with a lot of stuff. Like, I'm very like careful about what TTRPG material I read. Yeah. Because I don't want to like read it, kind of forget where I got it, and then be like, oh, this is this has never been done before, and then find out that it like absolutely has been done before.
Exactly. Oh, that's from that book. God damn it.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's so much fun playing in it too, because like I wrote down a huge list of locations and NPCs, and that's kind of all it was started with. Right. And then I wrote down like one of the things I like doing when I'm writing campaigns is I do like a spider web network outlining, like high school English kind of, where you're like planning a essay, like a 5-paragraph essay. And I write down all the villains. Oh, nice. And how they're connected, the organizations, the crooked cops, the gangs, the whatever is all connected in this thing. And then I plan the sessions accordingly of like, all right, at level this, you'll take out this bad guy and then this bad guy and so on and so forth, and figuring it all out. And I'm playing that game with a group of women, and myself being non-binary means that there's no cis men at the table. Oh, wow. And it has been so fun. The best. The absolute best. I could not recommend it more. And like I mean, this is definitely influenced by my own personal political feelings and stuff. The capitalism is the bad guy, big time. 100%. So big. There's an evil pharmaceutical company called AstraZeneca. There's a very like, it gives off Republican vibes of like a newspaper called Honey Tongue, where one of the reporters was a divination wizard and could follow the party around and write like slanted news articles about them and be like, who are these guys? And it was so fun. And then there's like I have my version of like, we don't have to get into names, but like, you know, a gigantic conglomerate monopoly company that sells, can bring things to your door in 2 days. I have a version of that called Excelsior. And pretty much the main BBEG, and the players already know this, so I'm not spoiling anything. The main BBEG, his name is Zusk Burgos, which is 3 people's names combined, and I'll let chat figure that one out.
Enjoy, chat. This is a little gem for you. Speaking of capitalism, WotC's latest misstep is their redesign of the D&D Beyond marketplace. They have pretty much gotten rid of the a la carte option of buying things from their marketplace, which you could just buy what you wanted without having to buy the whole set. Now they require their users to buy the book full price in order to access features. So, it is so dumb. What is your opinion of this new scheme and this whole thing where gaming companies are insistent on making it harder for the consumers to access the games they love?
Yeah, I've seen a lot on this. I think the crazy thing is, I honestly don't even think it makes sense from like a business standpoint. Like honestly, like every once in a while, you know, a company does something that you don't like as a consumer.
Right.
But there's like maybe a small part of your brain that's like, I get why they did it.
Right.
I still hate it. You know, like Apple comes out with a new freaking charger and it's like, oh, now I got to buy all new chargers. That sucks and it's stupid and it's annoying. I get why they did it because my hands are tied. I feel like I have to buy the new charger. Hate it so much. This one, I was like, this doesn't even make sense. This is only going to get you bad reviews. People are now just going to be like, all right, fine. Guess what? I can just go on bing.com and I can find the freaking subclass I need because most of that stuff's available. But legally, I don't support piracy. But also, a lot of things you can find on bing.com or Google or whatever. So use that information as you will. That being said, I hated it so much. I also just from the get-go, I have like a D&D Beyond account because of course I do. Yeah. But not a paid one. I only have a free one. I refuse to pay for digital copies of books that I own the physical copy of. Right. Even that was to me a misstep. Like this idea that it was like I have to buy the book again. Yeah. I already own the book.
I already got the book.
Why the hell? Just so that, and also now this is like very specific to me and very anecdotal. I like paper and pen when it comes to character sheets.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I don't think a lot of people know this, and I don't know if they do it anymore, but if you own the physical book, you could call the customer service of D&D Beyond, give them the ISBN and number of your book that you actually physically have in your hand, and they would give you credit for the digital copy.
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of people didn't know this. I knew it because I just kind of was like, oh, I'm just going to do that because I own these books. Why would I have to pay for another Tasha's if I already have it? Like, I want to...
Exactly.
So I did that. I don't know if they do it anymore, especially with this whole new system thing. They probably don't.
Yeah.
But that's what they used to do. So.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. It's interesting that they make it this whole thing. You have to call like over the phone.
Yeah, you gotta call the phone. You have to wait for a customer service person to answer you. They put you on hold forever.
That's crazy.
You have to be very persistent. Like you have to be super persistent to want this to happen. And it was at a time when I had nothing better to do. So
no, see that to me is the very definition of gatekeeping. You're trying to make it harder for people to enjoy the hobby and get into the space and stuff like that. And honestly, I keep hearing it feels like sometimes because we've decided to focus on 5th edition and D&D in terms of the TTRPGs that we cover, and like the information that we're dishing out, some of it can be applied to other stuff. Right? Like the idea of like communication is really important and session 0 and some things can be applied to any tabletop game.
Right.
But a lot of our tips are very specific to like, hey, if you have Warlock in your game, that might be only applicable to D&D.
Right.
When people are talking on TikTok and other socials and stuff like that, and they're sort of giving 5th edition a really hard time, a lot of times I find that it stems from like a disdain for Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, I can't even argue against that because I don't want to, because I agree with you. So why would I argue? I get where you're coming from. It does suck, and I hate it so much, and that's why I'm throwing little clues along the podcast episodes of different places that you can find all of the spells and all of the magic items where you don't even need to buy the stuff, because it's just so infuriating. And like, sometimes they do something like this that's just a terrible business decision that is gonna only make the space worse. And then they do things like the AI art, they do things like laying off people around Christmas time, they do all this other stuff. There's just like, it's so interesting to me when the community reacts so fast to these decisions. You know what I mean?
Like, it happens, I don't even instantly.
It is, and it's like, I find out because of TikTok. Like, I'll just be scrolling and then I see, you know, Jordan Brown talking about something Wizards did, and I'm like, oh god, here we go.
I found out from one of my friends last night, and I'm like, I did all this research. I was like, what is this? I didn't know anything about it. And it's like, I spent hours reading it, and I'm just like, well, this is horrendous, you know.
So silly, so stupid.
So this is not their first foray into pissing off their customer base. They've also essentially done this thing where they sanitize D&D in an attempt to make it more inclusive. They've changed rules. They did something with the feat imbalance. They did this whole 3-list spell class share thing. They changed the rogue rules. They're calling it 1D&D. I don't know what's going to be called, but that's one of the names they've put it. That seems to have made the game less cohesive and more what people used to accuse 4E of. Do you agree with the direction that WotC's going with Dungeons and Dragons? Was it a mistake? And if you were in charge, what would you have done? What would you have done differently?
Interesting. Okay. So, I'll be 100% honest. I barely know what's going on with 1D&D because I don't care for it.
Right.
So I just to like save myself like the mental energy, I just have been like, oh, I heard one or two things. I don't like them. I'm cool with 5th edition and just like tweaking the little things that 5th edition needs help with.
Right.
I don't need a whole new system. To me, it always felt like a money grab, like just this random opportunity to come out with more books of the player's handbook and the monster's guide and all this different stuff. And I was like, geez, like, you're still coming out with 5e modules.
Yeah.
And then also being like, don't worry, there's a brand new edition coming soon that you can get. And don't worry, everything's reverse compatible. BS. I call BS. I'm not into it. I don't understand it really. And frankly, it makes me sad because some of the things that I was seeing them change, I was 1,000,000% on board with. For example, some of the optional rules in Tasha's when it comes to ancestry backgrounds and like what are they called, like racial ability scores.
Yes, I was in agreement with that. Yeah,
I loved that. Finally, I feel like I was already doing that beforehand, but finally I have a book for some of the naysayers to be like,
it's in the book.
It's in the book. Technically, it's in the book. It's rules as written, if that matters to you. Because I was always of that mindset of like, it's so silly to me that like, okay, I'm playing an elf, so I'm not allowed to have a +1 in strength because no elf lives outside normal elf stuff. Like, that makes no sense to me. I don't understand it, especially when you have like other popular media, like what the hell's his name, R.A. Salvatore or whatever, with the Drizzt character. Like the idea that you couldn't make a character that is outside of these things, that those are all the worst parts of classic D&D lore. Is this idea of like inherent traits, whether it's alignment or stat bonus stuff. Like, it is just like stuff that I've never understood. This idea that like, if you're an orc, you're born and you're a little baby orc and instantly you're evil, and being like, that's so dumb.
It's doesn't make any sense. It's like, why does that make sense? Like, what? Like, you know, it just doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense.
also,
and like people can try and like explain it to me in a way that also still uses D&D lore where they're talking about deities and it's because the god is evil and therefore and blah blah blah. I don't care. I honestly
matter, you know,
that's sick for you. I don't care. I'm not playing the world that way. Even if I have Waterdeep as a part of my world, I'm still changing it.
Right, yes.
Hey, an orc killed your character's family. I'm so sad for you. That sucks. That orc who did that, he sucks.
Right.
But it's not because he's an orc.
It's not all the orcs. It's that orc.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I guarantee your character is going to meet a baker who is an orc. And he's going to be the sweetest guy.
Yeah, and he's gonna make you bread and cookies, and you're gonna be like, so conflicted. So seriously, do you want to go down this road?
Exactly. Like I try and shut that down immediately during like session, even like pre-session 0 stuff of like, hey, don't even come to session 0 if that's like the style you're trying to play at the table. If you're trying to play this like all elves have to hate orcs and orcs have to hate elves and mind flayers can only be this way and all this different hardcore limiting things that I just feel like are steeped in some deeper problematic stuff that other channels talk about way better than I do. Like when it comes to like misogyny and stuff, like the Slovenly trolls, I'll let them handle those conversations because they crush it and are so much better research than I will ever be.
So staying on the capitalistic way that D&D is being run from that angle, what do you think of the miniature market, specifically WizKids, and how they offer their miniatures in these mystery blocks that you know that you kind of have to like people buy for hundreds of dollars, and they may get a duplicate of something they already have. They never know. What do you think of that?
Yeah. What an interesting question. I guess I've never even really thought about it. And I think part of that is because I play almost exclusively online. So I don't have very many minis or maps or like map making stuff, like modular things of that nature. Like I just don't need it. And I'm very grateful too. My bank account thanks me for not getting into it because I probably would go crazy. That being said, I kind of am like a little okay with it in the sense that you know that you're getting a mystery thing.
Right.
So like you as the consumer, it's one of the very rare opportunities where I'm kind of like, well, you knew you were doing a mystery thing. You knew that there was a possibility. Now, when it gets like behind the scenes of like, what is the percentages of the likelihood of getting the good thing?
Right.
You know, like making sure that those are statistically accurate and making sure that there's some transparency there of like, listen, yes, you can get the blue dragon. Just know that it's a 1% chance. Right. I think that there should be some transparency there, but like the very basis of having like mystery box ideas, I think that's a great idea. I think it's fun. It makes it exciting and stuff like that. It works from a marketing standpoint. Like how many times I've done that so many times where I've bought like the dumbest thing right by the cash register. They're so smart. Right by the cash register, it's like you could get any Hello Kitty character, and I'm like, oh my god, if I don't get this one,
I need this Hello Kitty character.
Yes.
So, well, which leads into my next question. Then, are you a mini collector or a dice goblin?
Dice goblin.
Dice goblin.
Dice goblin, 1,000,000%. And it's so funny because in the beginning, watching these actual plays, seeing other people on these actual plays being dice goblins, and myself being like, you only need one set. Like, why do they have so much dice? That makes no sense. I have so much dice. This bag is empty, but normally this bag is full. This is another bag that's like full. I have a ton of dice just like lying around at all times that my cat is a big fan of. That's actually been a nightmare.
Yeah, there's this one. I have to put them high up. She's sitting behind me asleep right now, but I have to put them high up, away from her, because otherwise, in the middle of the night, you just hear clanking against the wall, and you're like, "What?"
Yes,
and then
100%. I'll hear a dice dropping down the stairs.
Yes. Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like laying in bed and I just have to be like, Justin, tomorrow morning, look for that dice.
Well, see,
Because if I forget,
you're gonna step on it.
it's gone.
And not only that, but it's also like if you're between sleep and wake and you're kind of like drifting, that sound is ominous. You're like, who's in my house?
It definitely can be,
like,
for
it's
sure.
the cat. Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, she loves the dice. It's incredible. I just got this D20 back like
Ooh.
very recently. It's just like a cotton candy colored
So
one.
cool.
It's one that I only use as a player because
mm-hmm.
it rolls really well. So I save my more pretty dice that roll terribly.
Right,
like this
right.
one has little flowers in them.
Mm-hmm.
My prettiest dice roll awful.
They're gorgeous. They're great to look at. They have pretty little things inside, but those pretty little things inside make it so off balance. That
probably makes a lot more sense than the dice gods cursing me. That's the other thing I found that's so interesting, like in the TTRPG space with dice and stuff, is how people have different superstitions when it comes to their dice. Because outside of dice, I don't have any superstitions.
Really?
I barely even believe in like luck. Like I'm very cynical when it comes to like so much of that stuff. But then when it comes to dice, it's like, don't touch these. Like they've been basking in the moonlight. Please, you're gonna steal their energy, and I have to make sure that like when they're sitting like on a surface, I like for the highest number to be on the top. So it gets real crazy real fast. But
at your tables, a lot of DMs have this type of player, but how do you deal with the quote unquote actually player? That player that kind of challenges you on the rules or challenges you on your lore. How do you deal with that type of player?
Violently. No. No, I think it depends on the session, and it depends on the way that player goes about it.
Okay.
Right? Like if that player is like, hey, just so you know, technically guidance is concentration, that is way better received than like, that's not how that works. You know what I mean? Like actually, two totally different vibes. Yeah. So that changes how I would handle some things. Also, I'm very fortunate where like most of the times I've gotten into the practice of bringing up how we are going to handle things like that.
Okay.
Prior to it happening. Okay. Because I always find that being proactive, this sounds very corporate-y, being proactive is better than being reactive. Because it just is like you're setting the expectation before it happens.
Right.
So like letting people know like, hey, heads up, this is like a very rules heavy game. I want you to correct each other. I want you to bring up this and that. We're trying to all learn the rules and stuff. So like this is the moment to be a rules lawyer.
Right.
Conversely, hey, now we're doing this other game. This is not the time to do that.
Right.
If you notice in your soul that so-and-so accidentally cast 2 spells in one turn, God forbid, this is the time that I need you to just eat it. Just eat that energy and it's okay. Yeah, this isn't the game where we're going to harp on rules too hard. So it's setting that expectation of how important the mechanics of the system is.
Okay.
Because I've had that issue too. Like as somebody who's like neurodivergent and stuff like that, I've been in games that are on camera and I see somebody do a rule that technically is against the rules. Everything inside of me is like, that's not how that works. Do I say something? And then it's like this fear of being like, oh, I don't want to be mean though. I don't want to be rude. And everyone's seeming to have fun. And then 30 seconds go by, 60 seconds go by. And then it's like, now it's too late.
Like they'll never know. This is bad.
I know. I'll tell Taylor later.
So as an experienced DM as well, what advice would you give someone who is doing that transition from player to DM?
Amazing question. Well, I would say there's so many tips. There really are so many tips. I think the most important though are don't feel like you need to know everything.
Gotcha.
So don't feel like you're not allowed to be a DM, or you won't be a good DM until you know all of X.
Right.
Whether that means the rules or the world, like the world building aspect. Like, don't feel like you need to know what happens when a wall of force spell interacts with an aura of undeath from this like, shit is gonna come out.
Right.
Like, you're gonna have to figure things out and bing it on the fly.
Right.
Other times you might think that, okay, I need this super established, incredible world building and all this kind of stuff. Hey, you don't even have to homebrew ever. You can use pre-written stuff and other modules, and there are amazing third-party stuff out there that you have access to, and that can help you a ton too. Another tip would just be, if you're new to it, if it's your first time DMing, I would suggest, and this is merely a suggestion because everyone's play styles are going to be different. That's a tip in and of itself. Just the idea that, like, hey, some people, even if we only stick to 5th edition, we don't even look at other TTRPGs, just in 5th edition, some people heavy on rules. Some people heavy on RP. Some people both, some people neither, like whatever, right? It's all over the place. So understanding that there are different game styles, there are different ways to enjoy the game, and that's okay. Right. Everything is groovy as long as everyone's having fun and everyone's on the same page.
Right.
So then what I would suggest as a brand new DM, first time running it, have a player or two who are very experienced.
Yes.
Like having another DM, because trust me, as a forever DM, if one of my players wanted to DM for the very first time, I would love to be at that table.
Oh, that's awesome.
I would love it so much because I think DMs make fantastic players.
Yes.
Because we know how much work goes into it, and sometimes we're there to help you out. If you put a guy in a cloak in the corner, I'm gonna go talk to him. Right? Like, you tell me sorry if I got you. But like, if you put like the clues of like, hey, there might be a trap ahead, I'm gonna fall for the trap. I know how much time you put into the trap and everything like that, and like we're gonna have fun. We're gonna figure it out, and then we can have that conversation like I was talking about earlier, where like, do you want me to, like, no, I don't want to necessarily like interrupt gameplay to bring up rules and stuff, but I'll let them know, like, anytime that you feel unsure about a rule or something and you want advice, let me know.
Right.
I got you. If you're like, because I've played in those games a lot where like this former player, now first time DM, is like, hey Justin, how would you rule this or whatever? And I'm more than happy to be like, in my games, I rule it like this.
Right.
But also follow your heart.
But also do your thing. Yeah. So I just want to go back a little bit to TikTok. You are, like I said, growing steadily on TikTok, almost at 2,000 followers. I think you're around 1,900, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Last time I looked. How do you deal with the comments of people in your comment section being either negative or toxic, either for their own benefit or just as the troll? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Hoo boy. Here's what I'll say. I've been weirdly fortunate. I say weirdly because I feel like it's like the exception. I've been really lucky when it comes to TikTok and toxicity and stuff like that. I don't know if it's just the algorithm for one reason or another has flew in my favor. I don't know if it's because I'm white and that helps a ton of things, unfortunately. I don't know what exactly it is. The fact that I'm non-binary and queer, but I like most of my presentation is mask presenting. So I think people make a lot of assumptions. So like I paint my nails, that's like a big identifying factor of myself. But like other than that, I would understand why somebody just like scrolling through TikTok would see me and immediately make a lot of judgment calls immediately and be like, oh, that's a white dude talking about D&D. Got it. I get why that is. It's an unfortunate stereotype and it is what it is. But also like, I think that honestly, that's the biggest toxicity I've even gotten. I once or twice I've gotten people where the toxicity was about D&D.
Right.
Most of the time it's like, you shouldn't paint your nails. And it's like, to me, like, everyone gets affected by that kind of negative talk
Yes.
Differently. I think that it's one of those things where, like, you could look at it from so many standpoints, but like the idea of you could receive 100 compliments and 2 insults.
Yes.
And something about the way our brains are wired, those 2 insults, unfortunately, sometimes have more impact than all of the compliments. And that is true. That does happen. I've gotten to a place in my queerness and like my identity and stuff like that where I've gotten a lot more comfortable and proud of who I am and stuff, to the point of, if somebody says something about my nails or something about being queer or like a pride flag or showing up for trans people or something like that, it makes me think of that. I don't know if it's like a proverb or expression or quote or something, but it's the a tiger doesn't concern itself with the opinions of sheep.
Yes, yes.
So the idea that, like, if you are the type of person who is going to take the time to say something homophobic or transphobic on my page, whether it's Instagram or back when I was doing YouTube with my sister's podcast I mentioned, for Pride Month, we changed our logo to a pride flag.
Oh, nice.
I did an episode in drag. The amount of toxicity that I got on YouTube, unreal.
Wow.
Unreal. Absolutely vitriolic, disgusting stuff. Nothing compared to what I've ever gotten on TikTok.
TikTok, right?
On YouTube, terrible.
It's
like
awful.
YouTube Shorts,
It's
terrible.
I stay deleting comments on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like it
was awful. It was so terrible. That being said, if you're the type of person that believes in those things that you're saying, this hatred that you're spewing, your opinion means so negligible amount of anything towards me. Like, I don't even want to know you. I don't want to know why you're here. Like, it's not my job to educate you and do all these things. You need to do some soul searching on your own time or whatever. I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not wasting energy or bandwidth on you at all.
Awesome.
I just kick you to the curb, delete that comment, block you so you'll never be able to do it again.
And that's it. Yep. Same.
And it is what it is. Sometimes on TikTok, when it is like specific to D&D, that's a little different. For the most part, it's not even like toxic, I guess. It's almost more like people who are just very set in their ways and aren't willing to kind of understand that it's like, hey, people play the game differently. Right. So I've had sometimes where I'll post an opinion of something or like my take on X, Y, or Z, and people will be like, that's not how you should do that, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I never come at it from a standpoint of like, you're wrong. Right. It's always just like, hey, bud, if that's how you and your table have fun, sick. Right. Good for you. As long as it's not like anything crazy. Like if it were something like truly problematic, that would be a different story. But normally it's just like, hey, you shouldn't prep for games that way. You should prep for games like this. And it's like, hey, dog, if that works, great. That works. No worries. Like I'm not going to fight with you over how to prep for a D&D game. If you feel that strongly about it, like by all means, dude. Yeah, I prep like this. It works for me. That doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. Our tips and tricks are very much like, here's what has worked for us. Yeah. Here's what might work for you. No guarantees that it will.
But try it. Well, speaking of prep, then, what is the balance for you between prep knowledge and winging it?
Great question. Yeah. So this is where Taylor and I differ big time. Oh. Okay. Yeah. I'm a huge prepper. Really? But I also enjoy it. I like prepping. I like spending the time coming out with like, oh wow, this is like a town that they're going to soon called Serpico. And like, here's like the vibes of the town, 4 bullet points, the elders and shamans, 3 of those, places and NPCs all figured out. Like, and that's just one location in the Shadowfell that they're going to. They could be there for an hour. They could be there for the whole session. I have no idea. And then I'm still prepping a ton of other stuff that also they could do. That makes me feel more comfortable to play the game. and then I improv all the gaps of how we get there and stuff. But it is still like, even though it looks like a lot, it is still bullet points.
Okay.
It's like, okay, there's a saloon. Here's what the saloon's called. Here's who owns the saloon. Past that, I'm wheeling and dealing. But at least I don't have to come up and sit there and be like, all right, what's the name of the saloon? And 10 minutes go by and I'm like, I'm on fantasy name generator. I'm coming up with something that I don't love,
but
I'm just doing it to be fast. And
right.
I personally don't like that. So I like prepping a lot.
Okay.
So it's probably like if I had to pick like percentages, it's probably like a 70-30.
Okay.
I prep a lot. I prep like what they might do.
Oh, wow. I'm the opposite.
There are times, there are times when
I'm in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the middle.
Yeah, there's times when like my players are like, we'll show Justin, like we'll go so off the rails and we'll do this crazy thing, and I've planned for that.
Right.
Because it's easier when you know your players,
right,
to plan for what they might do. You know the play. We've been playing the campaign for almost 4 years, so it's like I know the players, I know the characters, I know their characters' motivation, so I have a good idea of like what they're gonna do.
Okay.
When I'm playing with like strangers or with people that I haven't played with often, obviously things can get a little hairy, but also I have enough experience to where I'm like, I have a pocket full of tricks of, if it's a one shot where you kind of in a way have to be a little bit more railroady.
Yes.
I have ways to get people back on track. I have ways, I have NPCs and locations that I can just kind of like switch around.
Okay.
You know, like, okay, they were supposed to meet this NPC at this point in the game, but they went a different direction. Now that guy doesn't work at the tavern. He works at the inn. Bada bing, bada boom. Like,
he's
no
over
problem.
There now, so get in there. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Like just being fluid, being comfortable enough to kind of move things around, and also just like not taking things too seriously.
Yeah.
Like we're here to play the game together. It's not like my story that I'm just regurgitating onto you and you're just experiencing it or whatever. You are changing the world and we're working together and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And then Taylor, on the other hand, is very much like, he'll get the module on DM's Guild on Tuesday and he's running the game on Thursday. And he reads through it once and then let her rip, and he's just going for it. Yeah, I give him a lot of credit for stuff like that. I've seen a lot of DMs do it in that way, and it comes down to like what works for you and what makes you feel comfortable.
I've accidentally had that happen to me like yesterday. Yesterday I had everything planned out. I modified the one shot they gave me to fit my homebrew world. It was working out great. Everything was ready to go on roll 20, and roll 20 said, I'm going to eat all your stuff and you can't have any maps, and crash. So I had to go to D&D Beyond VGT. That thing sucks. Anyway, so
I haven't tried it yet. I used Roll20 for my whole home games.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been looking at some other stuff that's out there. Whether it's like Foundry or Tailspire or all these different things. Eventually I'll make the plunge.
What is your favorite setting in either your homebrew world or modules?
Great question. Okay. So I've never run a module.
Really?
Not one that I haven't written myself. And it's not like, I don't say that as like, look how cool I am for only doing homebrew. I just mean that to say, like, I don't know a ton of other settings other than like, I know a little bit about Forgotten Realms.
Right.
Because when I very first started being a DM and I was like, I straight up can't afford these modules. $50, $30. I can't afford this. I'll just write one. And then you just pop on the old search engine, you type in D&D worlds, D&D settings, and Forgotten Realms is probably going to come up.
Yeah.
And then I was reading about it and I was like, all this like deeply problematic stuff about different cultures doing these different things and the idea of their racial makeups influencing their character and their behavior. And I was like, I don't like it. I hate it actually so much. I'm just going to hand wave that away. And I'll keep all of the little tiny things I like. So Waterdeep, I like the name of that. That sounds like a cool town. Here's how the government of Waterdeep is set up. I'll change it slightly. Here we go. And then I just use that. So I have some familiarity with that kind of stuff. But really, I think in terms of like pre-written stuff, favorite settings, I'm a big fan of the Feywild.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Different settings and different like publishers, and whether it's third party or even D&D. I just like the Feywild in general.
Yeah.
I like the breadth of how it can look. Some people do it very like Disney and flouncy and like beautiful flowers and like coming down. And other people gear more towards the side of like Tim Burton.
Yes.
So there's like, I liken it to like, there's Alice in Wonderland Disney. And then there's Alice in Wonderland Tim Burton.
Right.
Where it's like still fantastical and whimsical, but in a much darker, less saturated color way.
Gotcha.
And so I'm like all about the Feywild. In terms of like homebrew stuff, other than Sphinx City, because I can talk about that all day. I love it so much. But I'm also working on another setting that I'm a really big fan of. I have like 70 pages of background lore. It's called the continent is called Bestia. And each of the nations is based on a different, like, I think they're phylums of like animals. So there's like Reptilia, Mammalia, the Amphibia Isles, Aves, Pisces, Arthropoda, whatever. And it just is your animal people. And it's
cool.
Zootopia meets Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's so cool. That is cool.
So
I like that. I like that.
I just love animals.
Yeah.
So it's just like a silly idea of let's play a game that's like nitty gritty realism, hardcore violence, and death is a very real possibility. And there's low healing, like healing magic has some limitations on it. Resurrection magic is exceedingly rare. And have that hardcore stuff with a dichotomy of like just so many animal puns. Just so many jokes about being a little like just picture it's like hardcore Game of Thrones and you're just like a ringtail lemur person who just has like those big eyes and is just like papa. I think it's so fun.
I just got this visual of a ringtail lemur going, the lemur has no name.
Exactly. Yes. Perfect.
I love that. I love that. What regrets or mistakes have you made as a DM and or as a player?
Okay. I think in terms of mistakes and stuff like that, I think it really comes down to just a lack of communication. I think is like the biggest area of opportunity I can think of for myself, is just like, especially in those early days, like I've gotten so much better at it as you like make mistakes and are and you see the consequences of those mistakes and then learning from them. So when you reflect back and stuff like that, like that 4-year-long campaign that I'm still in with Taylor, we didn't have a session 0. I didn't even know the session 0 was a thing at that time.
Oh wow, okay.
Right? Like, so it wasn't like I knew what it was and I was like, we don't need to do that. I didn't even know that was a possibility. So we had like a, whatever you want to think of it, session 0.5, 2 years in.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like, hey, now I know that a session 0 is like, we should go over this stuff, guys. And sometimes you find out like in the jump, and because you didn't have a session 0, you don't have like safety tools set up of like ways to mid-session let the DM know, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. So then it ends up happening after the fact, and like, thank God that table specifically, we're very close with it. We're all friends. Like we talk outside of D&D on a daily basis. Like some of these people are my closest friends. So because of that, and that's a unique situation, it's not always that way, that she was able to reach out to me. What I did was, we were on a magical island where there's a mist, and the mist makes you forget your memories.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, that's a cool idea. I saw it kind of in Critical Role. I'll jack that and just use it. And then she messages me after the session as her character who's starting to like forget a certain things. Like it starts off very small. Like you just forget where your sword is, and you're like, oh shit, here it is. Like I just forgot where it was for a second. And then slowly you're forgetting like what your parents' names are. You're forgetting all this. It gets pretty dark. And she hit me up after that session and was like, hey, I actually don't like this. Like for personal family reasons, like Alzheimer's and different stuff, like I actually don't like this. And I didn't think that I didn't think it would be a big deal, but it is actually triggering. And it was like, hey, sick, immediately we won't do that anymore, or we'll figure out the mist does something else, or maybe your character rolls with advantage, like even that. So it was like a learning experience. Yeah, trying to figure out like, okay, do I get rid of the mechanic completely? Is her character just immune to it? Or should I just get rid of it? And just like not knowing what to do in that time, but figuring it out with the help of her and the other players and stuff like that. So I think communication is big. Like all of the little mistakes that I've had in the past have stemmed from miscommunication or misunderstandings or stuff like that. So just trying to get better with setting expectations before they happened. So a lot of that, like, be proactive rather than reactive, has come from experience of like, dang, now I'm in a situation where like one player is hell-bent on wood elves hating high elves. And it's because I didn't communicate enough that like, hey, I'm not doing racial shit like that. I'm not doing that. Like, that's crazy. We're not having that in my game. I understand that you think it's fun to have your character overcome that. It's making everyone else uncomfortable though. So we're actually just not going to do that.
So, in your opinion, what is the most important, like, personality traits or strength that someone would need to have to work in not only the social media aspect of this D&D TTRPG thing, but also just interacting with people at tables as a professional DM, or just doing it for as advice-wise to be successful in it?
Yeah. Wow, good question. Okay. It's hard to think of just one thing. So I'll say two things.
Okay.
I think one is the ability to not take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
Just like the ability to be like, hey, this is my opinion on things. Some people are not going to agree. And like, you know, I like 5th edition.
Yeah.
A lot of my mutuals on TikTok do not like it. Yeah, big time. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, 5th edition doesn't hit because it's not what they like about tabletop games.
Right.
So like to them, tabletop role-playing games, they're much more about the role-playing aspect of it. They don't want to do like a combat simulation. They're not there for the crunch. And that's their personal style.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. In the beginning, I used to feel some type of way. Every time somebody was putting 5th edition down, I would feel some type of way where I'm like, oh, maybe they just haven't played it with me. Like maybe they're just playing with bad people and all this different stuff. And then it's like, or maybe that it's just not for them. And that's also okay. And let's not take things personally. Let's have the ability to kind of laugh at ourselves and just have a good time. And like, we don't need to take it so seriously. Like, yes, Taylor and I are trying to grow this into a business, but at the end of the day, these are games and we're having fun. Right? Like, it doesn't need to be like this like hill that you die on. I don't understand people coming up with like these hardcore lines in the sand of like, you either do it this way or you don't do it. And it's like, who cares?
There's a guy, I don't remember. He's on TikTok. He purports to be a professional DM, and he has drawn a line in the sand saying that his players don't know what they want, and it's his job. Yeah.
I know you're talking about. I knew you were going there.
And it's his job to give them what he thinks that they need. And he is willing to die on that hill. What is your opinion?
I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I can understand a scenario where that makes sense.
Okay.
I think the idea of taking that situation where that would make sense and painting every situation with that broad stroke, I think is careless.
Yeah.
Honestly, like there are times when, listen, they've come into tabletop role-playing games having never played one before. They may not know what they're going to like about the game.
Right.
That is sort of true. Like maybe they'll surprise themselves and they'll actually like combat more than role play, even though they thought that the opposite might be true, or vice versa, or whatever. Or maybe they hate it, right? That also is possible.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. Like, you could do everything right and still, you mentioned like your sister. I have a sister. It doesn't matter how good I run the game. She's not into it.
She's not into,
like,
same.
She's not into it. Even when I'm like, listen, you don't have to talk in a voice. You don't have to talk in a voice. You can just say my character does this. She's like, no, it makes me feel weird. I can't role play. I was like, all right. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. It is what it is. So like, yes, there's going to be a handful of times when your experience, the players are brand new. I guess there's times when it's like, hey, let me show you the other aspects of the game so that you can try it out and maybe you'll like it.
Right.
That you can see that being a thing, right?
Right.
If that was where his point ended, I'd be like, all right, I get what you're saying. But to be like, I don't know, I think he just went a little too far with it, where it was just like, oh, okay, now I disagree actually. Because
he's going into the punching dice and giving them like these scenarios that they didn't ask for, and it's just like, I don't know.
Because I think it comes down to what a session 0 and early stuff comes down to. Like, let's talk about the expectations. Let's talk about, let me get an idea of what you like and where you stand in your experience level and stuff like that. Because like, some people come into D&D and they have like, let's say, a video game background. There's aspects of D&D that experience is going to color. Like, they're going to figure out different aspects of the game differently.
Right.
Like, I had a lot of experience with video games before D&D, so the numbers and the stats and all the crunchy stuff, I picked that up very quickly because I had some experience with stuff like that. I also did drama and theater in college, so the role play aspect I kind of picked up pretty quickly, and doing voices and silly things like that. So people are going to, even if they've never played a tabletop game, there's a strong possibility that they come into a brand new experience and they do know what they like.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you can't have a conversation with them during session 0 and be like, hey, I know that you're all about role play. We are going to do one combat session and maybe you like it. Maybe you end up liking it. I mean, that's fine. Of course, that's why people do check-ins, right? Because you fill out that safety and consent checklist at session 0. Hey, we've been playing for X amount of years. Maybe some things have changed.
Exactly. That
right?
makes total sense.
So it's possible for people's likes and dislikes to change. But I think just assuming that you know them, or that you're some kind of mind reader, or that you're the decider in this thing, I don't love it. I don't like that. I don't like that.
So how many editions of D&Ds have you played so far? Which one is your favorite?
Only 5th.
Only 5th edition. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to play other editions, 4E, 3.5? No other plans? He's like, nope.
Nope, I'm good. I know that I play in a Pathfinder game I mentioned, so I know that there's some similarities to 3.5, and like that's where Pathfinder sort of stemmed off from.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of good. I can't imagine going back to older editions and finding anything that I guess I won't put it completely off the table.
Okay.
But I'm not in a rush to try like
Gotcha.
2nd edition or advanced Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that. It just is. It's never been something that is like a passion of mine.
Okay.
Like, you'll notice, like, on the podcast, like, we don't talk a ton about like the history of D&D.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, we don't talk about like in 1st edition they did this thing and da da da. It's like that, it just isn't super interesting to me. So so like, I'm not going to spend a ton of my time preparing for podcasts researching something that I don't find interesting.
Gotcha.
I guarantee there's a podcast out there if you are interested in that.
There is.
Probably.
So, other than D&D then, what other TTRPGs do you enjoy playing?
Oh, there's so many. I've been a really big fan of the different like Powered by the Apocalypse games. So like Monster of the Week or Monster of the Week, I played a really fun one that was set in New York City.
Okay.
And I played a drag queen named Josie Turnpike. So much fun.
The puns are punning. Oh my
So
gosh.
much fun. Yeah. People who aren't from the East Coast maybe won't get that one, but yeah, the Jersey Turnpike is a highway through Jersey.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that was a ton of fun. Just like attacking monsters in like 6-inch pumps. An absolute blast. And then playing a superhero in, I believe the game is called Masks: A New Generation, also a Powered by the Apocalypse game with Hammer of the Gods on their Twitch. That was a lot of fun. I played Johnny, whose superhero name was Pride, and I got to explore a lot of my own personal traumas when it came to like coming out and like being queer and accepting myself. So like when Johnny is not in superhero mode, very meek and like shy and like not very comfortable doing all this stuff, and then turns into a superhero and is like loud and proud. Like, so that is so much fun. And then the other games that I've been having a lot of fun with are actually those like TTR. I don't know if you've ever played one of those TTRPGs where it's just like the rules are like 2 or 3 pages.
No, I have not.
Oh my God. There's one called Definitely Wizards that I would highly recommend. The whole premise of the game is that you're all not wizards, pretending to be wizards, filling out like doing an exam to get your wizard license. So it's like set in a world where wizard magic is okay. Any other kind of magic, druid, bard, whatever, divine, all of that is illegal. So you have to pretend to be a wizard, but you're actually like a druid or one of these other things. So the game's called Definitely Wizards because it's like, we're definitely wizards.
I gotta see
that game.
I'm gonna look that one up.
That one was a lot of fun. And then I played in one that was called Werewolf Bake Sale. It couldn't be more specific. You're a werewolf. You're at a PTA bake sale, and you're trying to raise more money than the head of the PTA, who you do not like.
What?
Yep. And that's it. That was pretty much the game.
That's the game.
And I had so much fun.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, other than D&D, other than doing this podcast and Twitch and Instagram, what other games and pastimes do you enjoy?
Oh boy. I think it's so funny because it really does. It feels like it takes up so much of my time where it's like, okay, I have free time. Now I'll play some more D&D. It does sound crazy. I think every once in a while I'll play some video games, but I'm kind of right now in a phase of like playing a video game for like 10 minutes and then just being like, all right, that's enough. Yeah, like Mario Kart, or like, by the way, I don't know if this is a Jersey thing. I say Mario instead of Mario. Some people are going to hate that.
It's an East Coast thing because I say Mario and I know
it's
Mario. And I know a lot of people say Mario other places, but for East Coast, it's Mario. Like, at least I know for the tri-state area, it's Mario.
That's how I've always said it, and people are always like, "Don't you mean Mario?"
Exactly.
It's Mario.
It's Mario.
It's me, Mario. So,
like, you know, I get it. I get what the pronunciation is supposed to be, but if you're in New York, it's Mario. Okay.
Heck yeah.
That's it.
Heck yeah.
Rules as written or rule of cool?
Oh, you've put me against 2 solid options. Oh boy. If I have to pick just one, I'm picking rule of cool.
Okay.
But sometimes at some tables, I do like rules as written. Like, yeah, it really depends on the table. Like, for example, that game with Taylor, the one that's been going on for 4 years. Taylor is one of those nasty min-maxers. Freaking power player. And then we got our other friend Oliver. He's playing a wizard. They're at level 12, by the way. He's playing a wizard whose the first level was fighter. So you get the proficiency in like heavy armor, shields, all that stuff.
Right.
And then 11 levels of wizard.
Mm-hmm.
What that allows you to do is have a resting AC of 23.
Gotcha.
Then you add in some war wizard subclass stuff. Every time he concentrates on a spell, his AC is 25.
Oh, wow.
Then when he casts shield, his AC is a 30.
Jesus Christ.
So because I have some power players, I kind of need the rules sometimes. Right? Like it's a little bit easier for me to like use the rules to find these different ways to make things challenging. Mm-hmm. And because it's a campaign, it's different than a one shot. In a campaign, you're going to have those moments where you highlight their strengths.
Right.
But in a campaign, you also maybe should have some of those moments where you take advantage of their weaknesses also. Like in a one shot, that wouldn't feel as fun, right? Like if you're only playing this one game for 3 hours and I'm like exploiting all your weaknesses and challenging you a ton, then it's like, dang, I don't really feel great. Like, but in like a 3-year campaign, every once in a while, a little challenge is okay.
It's perfectly okay. Yeah, I totally get it.
Exactly.
It's perfectly fine. You know, so I'm sorry, something's happening with the bit rate here. Hang on, don't do that. Stay with me. Yay. Okay, good. So, if you could DM for anyone, and I ask this question to all my guests. So, if you could DM for anyone, dead or alive, real or fiction, who would it be?
Dead or alive. Real or fiction. Cool. So literally anybody.
Anybody. Literally anybody.
Literally anybody. Oh wow. Goodness gracious. Okay.
It always makes this question makes all DMs, all game masters brain break because they have so many ideas and people, fiction and real.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you just opened it up big time. Because there's like people who are kind of like low-key already in the space where it's like, oh, like Emily Axford. I would love to play with Emily Axford. But then it's like, but also dead people are on the table. So like you can pick anybody. That's crazy. Okay. Wow. Some people it's just like, yo, just show them the game and like have fun with them would be so cool. So ready? Here's the list.
Okay.
Steve Irwin.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Oh my God, no one has ever said that. Okay, go for it. Okay.
Steve Irwin. James Baldwin.
Okay. Wow.
I want to play with Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
I want to play with I'll pick one living person. I want to play with Allie Beardsley really badly. I think they're the bee's knees. I think they're incredible. I'm obsessed. And last but not least, I think I'm going to go another like author. I'm going to go Maya Angelou.
Nice. Okay. Wow. That's impressive.
I think like James Baldwin and Maya Angelou, I'm thinking like authors already are going to have like so much creativity and stuff like that. And then on like layering it on top of that of being like, the idea of seeing the like joy I would feel seeing Maya Angelou or James Baldwin or any of these people for that matter. Steve Irwin's just there for vibes, right? like come on. Exactly. We're just having he's playing a druid. We're having so much fun. He's wrestling crocodiles. But like seeing them improv is, I guarantee that the stuff they're going to come up with is like so beautiful. Say Edgar Allan Poe, just like the idea of being like, okay, cool. What does your spell look like? And having like Edgar Allan Poe being like, from the depths of my soul, and being like, hell yeah, amazing.
Like, yes, oh, that's awesome. That is amazing. So we've come to the portion where chat gets to ask questions, and we have a list of questions here. So Potion and Poopery asks, what content will be on your upcoming Twitch channel?
Incredible question. I want to say that that's probably Kayla from Potions and Potpourri. We did, Taylor and I did a little interview on there. So, content for the Twitch. So, first and foremost, we're going to be doing a mixture of short campaigns. We talked about that, right? Where it's like 8 episodes, 10 episodes. It might vary slightly. Maybe one day we'll get into like a longer campaign, but not for like not even for like a year. Like, it's going to be short stuff. Then there of course will be like one shots, there'll be like two shots, like those kind of very small ideas of whether it's D&D and we're just exploring different ideas. Like maybe we'll do a one shot that's level 20. Maybe we'll do a one shot that's all bards.
Right.
And we'll be able to explore some interesting ideas on the fringes of D&D. And maybe we'll also be able to experience a ton of other TTRPGs as well. And I can get to introduce, because like Taylor hasn't had as much experience with other TTRPGs.
Okay.
So maybe I can bring him into the fold and we'll see what works and what doesn't work. Because I know he likes the crunch. Right. So Werewolf Bake Sale might not be for him. And that's okay. I think he's missing out, but I think that, you know, that is okay. And then we're also probably going to be, in addition to those kind of things, which obviously require some planning, they require some prep. We're reaching out to other individuals who are going to be playing at those tables and figuring out session zeros and safety checklists and all these different things. Every once in a while, maybe we're feeling a little lazy and we just want to like log on to Twitch. We're playing Mario Kart and we're answering questions from the audience about D&D and about being a Dungeon Master.
Right.
So it's going to be a bunch of different things, but yeah, we have a lot of ideas for different games. Our first like campaign is going to be Sphinx City, actually. So I'll be running that one in Sphinx City, and that's going to be a lot of fun, and I legitimately can't wait.
Oh, that's so cool. Angry Meeples asks, as a GM, what's a concept you've tried to execute in-game but never succeeded in making work? What is your gaming white whale that you keep returning to despite failures?
Great question. Okay. I haven't. Okay. So I think it's probably something along the lines of like flashbacks.
Okay.
Like finding a good way to incorporate I know that there's a game called Blades in the Dark. I haven't personally played it, but I'm very familiar with it because anytime you talk about flashbacks in regards to 5th edition, people are like, Blades in the Dark does that. It's like, I know. I
got it. It's not that.
The idea of like the Ocean's 11 style heist where like they're in the middle of the heist and they like pull something out of their pocket and you're like, how did they get that item? And then it like does a little flashback and you see how they got that item and all these different things. So that's definitely on the level of Moby Dick of I'm trying to figure out ways to do that kind of stuff, because I have this idea for an underwater western.
Okay.
Mermaids but cowboys. Okay.
Okay.
It works so well. Seahorses are horses. Sandcastles. There's something there about sandcastles. I haven't figured it out yet. A piece of coral as a tumbleweed. The pieces are there. So I want to do this idea of having combat and roleplay mixed into one encounter.
Gotcha.
So for example, we roll for initiative. It's your turn. You're first at the initiative. I'll have you describe what your character looks like to the audience and everything like that, and what you're doing with your action. You're like, okay, I'm gonna use my movement. I'm gonna use my action. Blah blah blah. All the normal D&D combat things. Then I'm going to let you have a one-on-one with me, almost, where we have a flashback of how you got here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Like, kind of think of that thing of like where the movie starts and they're like in the middle of like falling off a cliff and then they pause in midair and they're like, you're probably wondering how I got here.
Yeah.
It started a long time ago. Let's talk. And then kind of like that idea where like every person's turn in combat, not only are they doing normal combat things, but then they get a little flashback.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's the first round. And then the second round, we do a shared flashback where it's the whole group. How did you guys all come together? And these will be things that we talk about before the session.
Right.
So it's not full improv and you're not like on the spot. But yeah, I'm working on it. I'm getting the creative juices flowing. I feel like there's something there big time.
Angry Meatball again. His no question play GURPS.
I have heard of GURPS and I'm familiar with its existence.
Hampods asks, what's your favorite game you've played recently?
Oh boy. My favorite game that I've played recently, I just participated My only complaint is that it was too short because I wanted to keep playing forever.
Okay.
I recently played in with Aaron of Even Footing Games.
Mm-hmm.
We called it like Pirate Pop, and it was just like we used kids on bikes, but it was altered slightly, so everyone was a bard.
Mm-hmm.
And we wrote a bunch of songs, and it was like a lot of like Wish.com Al Yankovic style spoof songs and stuff like that. And that was so much fun. It was so where are they? I had like sunglasses. I don't know where they are right now, but I had like sunglasses on, that like cat ear sunglasses. I was wearing a Britney Spears shirt. My character's name was B.S. Pierce.
Okay.
And I had like, I rewrote the lyrics of Toxic so that every time I sang that song, it would cast like Stinking Cloud. And I had the song Lucky. Do you remember that song?
Yes, I do, actually. Oh my god.
So it was,
you know,
she's so lucky.
You made that into okay. We can talk about this all night. Like, this could be a thing. Angry people ask, what is the most bizarre setting you want to explore, even if it may not fit a show format?
Yeah, I already have an answer for this. Something I've been working on to the point where like I was like really trying to force this idea into 5th edition before really just being like, there's no way. There's actually no way to make this fit into 5th edition. I just have to either invent a new game, which is what Taylor and I are slowly working on, but I'll give you a sneak peek. Because this is like way back on the back burner. Like, it's not even on the stove. This is like in a different room.
It's in a prep area somewhere.
It is, yeah. This is in the prep area with the all the other mise en place and stuff. So I have this idea of, and you heard it here first, so no one steal it. I have this idea of a TTRPG that takes place inside of a TV dimension.
Okay.
And the idea is that all of the players would be called like channel surfers.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then the person who runs the game is the TV guide.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to change the channel depending on how things go.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're on a new channel, you have to sort of, like, not in a literal mechanic way, but you're sort of playing by the physics and the rules of that channel.
Okay. Oh, cool.
For example, if you're in a medical drama, there has to be some drama. You're a doctor, but hey, listen, you're also like, you know, the nurse because the nurse slept with your cousin, and you're like,
and McSteamy has to come along.
Exactly. And then the channel gets changed. Now you're in an anime, so now you have a power up move, and you're calling out your power moves as you go, and you're fighting in a tournament, and then change the channel. Now you're on a music competition show. You got to impress the judges. You got to get on to the show and beat them for the next stage of the competition. Change the channel.
Sitcom.
Now it's a reality dating show. Like, all these different ideas of just different shows. And you'd be playing like the same characters, and commercials are a whole nother part of it. We can figure that out too, where it's just like a funny break in the game. But yeah, I really do think there's something there. Because I think everyone has their own interpretations of these different channels, and like what makes a medical drama, like what makes a soap opera. And there would be like little, almost like they're more like suggestions than anything else, but kind of like objectives.
Gotcha.
So like in the soap opera, like you have to one up each other. Okay. So one person says like, I'm your twin, and then the other person has to be like, well, I'm your twin's mother, or something, like, and you're one upping each other. So like, there's something there, and Taylor and I have been working on it slowly but surely.
That is cool. Angry People also says, remind me to talk about the clown demon. I don't know.
The clown demon? I don't. All I can think about is Pennywise from It.
Me too. I don't know. All right. Well, I reminded. I'm not sure what that is. If anyone has any more questions, please drop it in the chat. The clown demon story is about how no session 0 is perfect for my games. Part of the things you don't want us to include. I specifically asked for phobias, all anonymous, of course. One person, a friend, but a new player, neglected to list any intense fear of clowns. When asked after the fact, she said she thought there was no way it could come up. If it can come up, it will come up. If there's even a minute possibility that you don't think it will happen, that thing specifically will happen.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. You might as well just bring it up just in case.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't hurt, because it's like rather bring it up and not need to have.
Yes.
Than need to have and you didn't bring it up.
Right, and now you're stuck.
Right, like,
you know. So
exactly.
While we wait for some more questions, tell everyone what we can expect from Justin in the future, and from So You Want to Be a DM.
Well, we're gonna keep chugging along on TikTok and Instagram at So You Want to Be a DM. We have so many ideas for the podcast and the Patreon. So You Want to Be a Dungeon Master. The Patreon, we have like, there's different tiers and everything, like every other Patreon, I imagine. Where like lower levels, you get early access to the episodes. Mid access, you get access to bonus action, which is a totally different podcast where we talk about a million things, that some of which are tips and tricks, and some of which are just like Taylor and I talking about our favorite spells.
Right.
Or talking about like monsters we think are fun, or like we've been doing a series on there called Multi-Class Mystery Mashup, where we roll on one of those spin generators, you know, those like pinwheel things.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And you just pick 2 random classes and you build a level 10 character.
Okay.
So you have no choice of the 2 classes that you get. It's not.
Yeah.
I last time got Bard and Druid. I've never even thought of Bard Druid.
A Bard Druid?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it could work if you're like naturey and like. What comes to mind is this like weird nature 1968 hippie, like that's what comes to mind, you know.
Absolutely, cool. It's a lot of fun. It gets you thinking outside your comfort zone and stuff like that, and it kind of lets you look at the mechanics in a different way.
Yeah.
Like I think I ended up doing a character who like had a fisher background, so they would catch fish and stuff like that, and their bardic performance was in the form of like a hibachi chef, kind of.
Okay.
Like giving the performance of just being like very charismatic,
like that whole
okay, making people laugh and like flicking shrimp into their mouths and stuff like that, and just having a good presence with that. And then the druid comes in with I'm really good at catching fish. Like I can talk to the fish. I'm very good at animals and nature and stuff like that. So that's how I did it. And I think I named him something like Emerald Legariel instead of Emerald Lagasse. I don't know.
Names are so funny. Oh my God. Like the names are like.
I put a lot of time into names.
Like
I put a lot of time.
The BS peers, like that, the names are just namings. I love it. So
I appreciate that.
So far we have no more questions. So I usually, what I ask my guests to do, if they're familiar with Twitch, which you are, is to guide the raid. So let us know where we're going. And
gosh.
Yeah, and while you're taking a look at that, chat. So next week we're going to be interviewing Riley Elliott. She is a very proponent content creator on TikTok. She does some D&D stuff. She has a lot of social commentary. I'm excited to talk to her tomorrow, next Friday, I believe it is. Look at the space for that time. Usually it's around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will see you next weekend. We don't have anything planned beyond that, other than that, but let me double check. Also, I want to say thank you to all the new followers that we got today and yesterday, and everyone who helped out with the massive 1,000 follower D&D, 1,000 player D&D epic game that happened in
so
Utah.
Cool.
That was very, very cool.
Sounds incredible.
And I was very happy to be part of it. And thank you to my players as well. So where are we rating out to?
So I've never been asked to do this before, so I slightly panicked and went under the category of Dungeons and Dragons on Twitch, and I recognized some of the people in this one, so I just picked tabletop notch. I apologize if I looked for some of the people that I'm friends with and whose channels I've been on. I don't think they happen to be streaming at this moment, so I was like, okay, even for the game, sorry, buddy. But yeah, tabletop notch is a fun actual play, very funny.
I think I see them. Let's see. Are they live or is this a rerun?
Oh, good question. I have no idea.
Yeah, this kind of looks like
Entirely possible.
Yeah, this looks like a rerun.
Okay,
So,
what about... Hold on, I have a backup one. Here, I'm going to type it into the chat so you have it.
Yeah.
It'll be in the chat for the video ninja thing.
Awesome.
Oh, hold on. There it is. Wow.
Bob, come on. Did it not come up? I did not get anything. Because why would I not get anything? You know, drop it in the Discord chat if you have that open.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which is very interesting.
We're figuring it out.
Yeah, I've noticed that the closer I come to a certain time, the more like my bit rate and things that weird tech things start to happen. That got it.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Like, it almost never fails. So I'm not surprised that happened. But we will do that and that. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. That was a ton of fun. Thank you, Justin, for being with us.
My pleasure.
They are on TikTok. You can follow them on so you want to be a DM. So you want to be a DM. Follow them on TikTok as well as on Instagram. Check them out. They're a lot of fun to watch. They have a lot of great of advice for new DMs and people who want a refresher.